Welcome
to the Age of Awakening.
Please identify yourself. Enter.
Hey, Triple P Nation. Welcome back to the, of course, Triple P Life podcast, where this week we're going to explore the tools, tactics, and strategies to help you achieve personal and business mastery. And this week, we're going to talk about fitness, your health. By the way, I've got a really exciting episode I'm coming out with in a couple of weeks that's really going to dive into the root causes of all disease and sickness. We are at a critical point in our journey as a species, particularly Americans. We're the sickest population on Earth. I'm going to tell you how we've gotten here. I'm going to tell you what is at the root cause of all this exceptional sickness and disease that's going on all around us, why we're so morbidly overweight, why there is such an increase in heart disease, in cancer, in diabetes, and childhood diseases. But I'm also going to not only give you the statistics to support that position, but I'm going to give you some real strategies to help shift and turn that around. Why? Because you and your family, your lives are at risk. Your quality of life, and I'm not being over dramatic here, your quality of life. And here's the thing, you can turn it around. You can. I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you knowledge how to do so. Listen, and I guess if you didn't notice, the mission of this podcast is to help you grow into 4 key areas: mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. And each week we're going to touch on a different topic. So this week we're talking physically. In the future, the episode I just referred to, same thing, right? We're also talking about your finances and how to become a better professional or entrepreneur, or your mindset. That's what I love about this podcast, is that we'll touch those key areas that make all the difference in the quality of your life. Now, before we get started with our interview, and my guest this week is Allan Misner. Allan is a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer, a Precision Nutrition Level 2 Master Health Coach, and a Functional Aging Institute certified functional aging specialist. He provides online one-on-one group and nutrition and fitness coaching for clients over the age of 40. And he's the host of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, which is the longest running health and fitness podcast for people, of course, over the age of 40. He also wrote the book, the award-winning book, I might say, The Wellness Roadmap, a straightforward guide to health and fitness after the age of 40. Wealth of knowledge. You're going to love my interview with Allan. And we'll get to that in just a moment. As soon as I go over this week's success snack, which is, it's exercise snack. So we're going to change the title. It's exercise snack episode. And if you're like me, especially when I'm in my studio and I'm writing and I'm producing content and I'm recording, so on and so forth, you sit a lot, right? Most of us now, our work is sedentary, right? Very few people are doing manual labor. And so this shift in the technological advancement has caused us to be very inactive. And this is leading to enormous health challenges. Again, I'll cover shortly. But I want to give you some strategies that I use, what I call my exercise snack, throughout the day to get up, to maintain movement and exercise, to keep my body functioning at a high level. So there's really 2 things here that I want you to focus on. One is cardio endurance and muscular endurance. And you can do this throughout the day at work. So first, let's talk about cardio endurance. So cardio endurance is 1 to 2 minutes. That's all it is. Where you get up from your desk, you can do 100 jumping jacks, you can run in place, you can do speed squats, whatever it is that gets your blood pumping and your heart moving. 1 to 2 minutes. I like to do it 2 or 3 times throughout the day, and then I'll do the muscular endurance. This may include wall sits, where you're sitting up against a wall, your back is up against a wall, your knees are 90 degrees. It's like you're sitting in a chair, but there's nothing behind you. You're just leaning up against a wall. This contracts my core, my quads, my glutes. And so this engages these muscles and creates resistance, again, increasing circulation, blood supply, all the endorphins and feel-good chemicals necessary to keep our energy levels high. You could also do sit-ups. You can do push-ups, whatever it is that you like to do. But throughout your day, at least start with one cardio endurance. You can even run up and down the stairs, especially if you're in a third or fourth, fifth, whatever floor you're on, run a couple flights of stairs. And I know you're saying, well, my boss won't allow it. I don't think that's true. If you're telling your boss you're doing this so you can stay performing at a high level and feel good and not miss as much work and just be mentally sharp, they'll probably do it with you. And imagine if you got the entire office doing it together. And then, of course, the muscular endurance. So all it takes is 1 to 2 minutes each time, maybe every other hour. Set an alarm at 55 minutes to the hour, get up, move around, grab some water, do something to re-energize yourself. And I promise you, if you do this a few times a week throughout the week, you're going to notice significant improvement, and you'll maintain the fitness advances that you've got outside of work. And when you get done with work, your energy is still going to be high. You'll be able to go home and engage with your family and feel good, not exhausted and completely wiped out. Promise. Why? I know. I do it myself. Okay, guys, get ready. I know you're going to be excited about my interview with Allan Misner. It's great stuff. Make sure you take some notes. Okay, here we go. Hey, Triple P Nation, welcome back. As I mentioned, my guest this week is Allan Misner, and I'm excited to have Allan because we're two 40-plus old guys. I'm 60, Allan, by the way.
Yeah, I'm 58. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Right. So we're in the same demographic here, and we're both passionate about fitness. And again, I saw that you have the largest and longest running healthcare fitness podcast called 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. And you've been doing this for 9 years. And in our pre-show conversation, you told me that you had left the corporate world and found your passion doing this kind of work, because not only is it needed, but there is a lack of really critical information that society needed. So why don't you tell us the story of how you transitioned, or why you transitioned out of the corporate world, the cushy corporate world, and took on the risk of stepping into this and I'm assuming pursuing your passion.
Yeah. Well, I was in really bad shape. I had made it to the C-suite by the age of 39 at Fortune 500 companies. So it's sort of the thing, when you start talking about what we're climbing that ladder or the rat race or whatever you want to call it, I had done it. I was right where I was supposed to be from a career perspective, but I was unfit, I was unhealthy, I was obese, and I was miserable, just flat out miserable. And so here I was at 39 years old saying, this is not how life should be. I've got to start figuring this stuff out. And I tried and I failed, and I tried again and I failed. I'd lose a little bit of weight and I'd gain it all back. And everything I did didn't work. And I'm like, I don't understand. When I was 29, I could do these things and I would lose weight and I'd be fine. I couldn't anymore, and I couldn't do those things anymore. And so I started looking around for resources. I was already listening to podcasts. This was 2013, before most people even knew what a podcast was, but I couldn't find one on this. Plenty about CrossFit, plenty about, weightlifting, bodybuilding, those types of things, but nothing that talked specifically about how to do this when you're over 40. And so I started looking for books, and the only books I could find were chair yoga and stretching. And I'm like, well, that's not going to help me lose 60 plus pounds. So there was nothing. And I traveled a lot for work. So there really I couldn't hire a trainer, because if you're only home one weekend a month, you're not going to get much done. I did hire a nutritionist at one point, but that just for one session. And that was it as I was going through this. So since I couldn't hire a trainer, I couldn't find anything, I just decided that I would get myself certified and train myself. Now, it's not the recommended path to knowledge is to become the professor, but I did. I got my certified personal trainer. I got functional aging. I got corrective exercise, fitness, nutrition. And so I started getting information and figuring out, okay, this is why this is happening. This is why this is happening. And I was able to kind of fix myself. Now, a lot of this was mental, and we'll probably talk about the mental side of all of this too, because I think that's what gets overlooked is you can know what to do, but if you're not doing it, you're not going to get anywhere. So I worked through a lot of the mental stuff. And it took me 8 years before I finally got serious. But when I did, I managed to lose 66 pounds of fat and gain 11 pounds of muscle over about 11 months, and was able to complete a Tough Mudder with my daughter, who was a level 1 CrossFit coach. And of course, when you lose that much weight that fast, your friends start asking questions. Do you got cancer? No, and a few other questions. But they want to know what your secret is. And I said, well, there's no real secret. It's not a secret. It's just it's a way of thinking and a way of doing. And I understand it. And so I decided I was going to go ahead and start the podcast, and I would train people on the side and keep my corporate job. The goal was to do that for about 5 years. And then I'd get to about the age of 55 and I'd retire. And then I would do this full time or part-time, probably part-time if I was, drawing retirement. So about 2 years into my plan, I got laid off. And I told my wife, I went home and I said, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't like going into board meetings, and I don't like going into meetings where we're talking about laying people off and head count and span of control and all those things as a corporate manager you're always doing. I was like, I'm kind of done with it. So I told her I was quitting, not going back. She took a job for 1 year just to get our insurance, because I had a Cobra for a while, but that was $1,600 a month. And then she went to work. When I got off the Cobra, it was $2,000. They wanted $2,000 a month for my insurance, for our insurance. And I was like, I don't even understand how it can be that much. I'm generally now a really healthy guy, but it was. And so she went to work for 1 year, and I wrote a book called The Wellness Roadmap, which kind of laid out my journey and the things that I had learned along the way. And I kept doing the podcast. I interview experts across all different fields. So I kind of got this breadth of knowledge, because I read every one of their books. And so we're having really good conversations. And I know the topic well enough to pick out the best parts for my audience. And I really enjoy I'd be reading these books for free. I'd be buying the books. So it was really just a good experience for me to say, okay, I'm going to do this full time. And so I started bringing on clients and started coaching. And again, this was before anybody knew what online coaching really was. So there was a lot of education telling someone, how can you coach someone when you're not in the same room? I'm like, well, we're on Zoom. That's part of the answer. And so I did. I started coaching people online full time. And that gave us the freedom to be able to go and do anything else we wanted to do. So we moved to Panama. And, I've been down here for 5.5 years now and just loving it.
It's fantastic. So why 40? So specifically, is that a magic age in which you have found that, there's a major physiological shift, or is there a unique difference between people who are training and trying to regain health once they reach that quote unquote magical age? Or is that just kind of worked out for you when you were pursuing your journey?
Well, there are some physiological things that happen, but they happen in your 30s. So typically in your 30s, men and women, we're losing muscle mass through sarcopenia, and we're losing bone density through osteopenia. For women, that's a much more serious problem than it typically is for men, but that's when that process starts. And so you're losing about 1% of your muscle per year. You're losing about 1% of your bone density per year, which means your lean mass is going down. And most people aren't losing weight, which means their fat mass is going up, which means their overall, body fat percentage starts to climb. And then, somewhere around the 40s, the women start their menopause, perimenopause and menopause, on average, starting around 45. So it just is, from a physical perspective, there's a problem. But then there's also the social aspects of it. Your kids are becoming adults, okay? Most of us are having our kids in our 20s and 30s. So now they're becoming adults. And our parents are aged, and they're starting to need medical help and care. And so it's a transitional period of time that's very difficult for most people to focus on self-care. There's too many things. There's a lot of things going on, but it also kind of a time when I think people start to look ahead and realize it's now or never. Some people have been carrying extra body fat for decades, and they're like, if I don't lose it now, it's not going to get easier in my 50s, and it's definitely not going to get easier in my 60s. And so it is one of those moments where they're like, okay, I've got to do this now. So it is a wake up time. Some people will go buy a Corvette. Other people will lose weight.
I have a Corvette.
Okay.
But I didn't need to lose weight. No, it's a really good point. One of the businesses I own, we have a hormone optimization clinic, and we know that testosterone levels are down 50% over the last 20 years. We also know that 42% of the adult population is obese, 74% are overweight. So I'm assuming that a lot of people who you are working with that are training, many are for the first time looking at their health in a very unique, different way from a longevity standpoint, quality of life standpoint. How do you start initially? Let's say with someone who's never trained, someone who's never really looked critically at their diet, at their nutrition, so on and so forth. Like, how would you start someone like that?
Well, a big chunk of that starts with why. Your why. I found if people don't take time to think about why they're doing what they're doing, then they won't stick with it. It's just, there's just something to the fact that once you get the foundation of why you want something, it sticks. Okay. So for me, it was this, I was trying, and I got to this point, and my daughter called me up and she said, "Hey, Daddy, would you come watch me do a CrossFit competition?" And I was thinking to myself that just like it's just a pit in my stomach. Like she punched me. Like, what? I'm not supposed to be a spectator in my daughter's life. I should probably be doing that competition with her. I can't because physically I can't, but I should be able to. And so it was just this, I'm supposed to be a participant in her life and not a spectator. So the why for me was a very deep thing. And as I, later thought back on it, I realized what it was. It was her respect and my own self-respect that I wanted. Okay. And that's what woke up. That's what woke me up and got me thinking, I've got to do something different. And then the second piece of it was, okay, so if it's getting myself into the shape to be able to participate with my daughter, that's what it looks like. That's the vision. But I was sitting there and I was like, why is this so hard? Why is losing this weight so hard? I've done so many hard things in my life. And I'm like, why is this harder? And then I realized it isn't harder. I just haven't committed to do the things I need to do to be that person yet. Whereas like when I was trying to study for the CPA exam in college, I was obsessive. I was fanatical. If I was awake, I was studying because I did not want to take that exam twice. And so I did it when I was stationed with a Ranger unit in the military. I wasn't a Ranger yet. Well, and I didn't know if I was going to be, but they put me in a Ranger unit. So I'm in here with all these elite fit guys. And I'm like, okay, I got to get caught up with them. I got to be as physically good as they are so I can not be the weak link in this unit. And so my training and everything I did, I was like all in, like 6 hours of physical training, like a professional athlete. And I was like, so every time I've done something hard, it was because I dedicated myself 100% to doing it. And I had not done that yet for this until that moment. And then that's when I committed to do it. So your why and your vision, when you add those together, that's a commitment.
So do you find people then when they decide to take this journey, there's a moment, maybe they go and they have some blood work done and they see they're a metabolic disaster. I mean, they're a heart attack waiting to happen, or there's a familial history of breast cancer or whatever it is. And they're like, look, if I don't make changes now. So do you find that some sort of precipitating factor or some sort of moment in which they wake up and they go, I can't keep going down this road? And then you take them through that why and vision process.
Yeah. Well, this is, if you follow, the stages of change model where basically people are in pre-contemplation and they don't know that they have a problem. And they kind of know they have a problem, but they don't want to solve it yet. And so at some point, yes, they get into contemplation. They want to solve this problem. There usually is some trigger. Now, my initial trigger was when I was 39 and almost died playing sand volleyball. And I was like, okay, this isn't who I'm supposed to be. Now, that should have been the trigger. That should have been it. No, but instead, some people say you hit rock bottom and that's when things get better. I was drug along that rock bottom for 8 years trying to fix myself, but I had not really committed. And therefore, I just really wasn't doing all I could do. And so I spent a long time in, I guess, what you'd call contemplation and back and forth pre-contemplation without really going anywhere, without getting anywhere. At determination, that's when you decide you're going to turn things on and do something. Okay, so you may not know exactly what you're going to do, and I didn't, but I knew I needed some things. So the prerequisite was, okay, I got to go out here and become a personal trainer because I can't hire one. And then I've got to learn this and I've got to learn that, and I've got to apply them in my life and get the results. And so there usually is some form of trigger, but my real trigger was my daughter asked me to watch her do a CrossFit competition. I was like, no.
Sure.
I mean, I did watch her. I'm not a bad father. I did go watch her. But at the same time, that was not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be there with her and doing it with her. And that was not who I was at that point in my life. And I knew I needed to fix that.
So I have experienced when it comes to, because I do a lot of public speaking, and whether it's on business or mindset or wellness, I find there's two kinds of people: people who avoid pain, or they move towards pleasure. And I found about 80% of the population are just trying to avoid the pain aspect of it. In other words, I just don't want to be sick. And then there's, so why do you exercise? I don't want to be sick, or I don't want to be disabled. And then there's 20% who want to exercise because they want to feel well. They want to accomplish a task or a goal. So do you use that aspect when you're working with people, specifically as you're working through the motivation part? Because you even mentioned, right? So how and why do we get people, from a motivation standpoint, to get themselves in the right place?
Well, one of the problems with motivation is that we don't actually know how it works. I think a lot of people don't know how. They're like, oh, well, okay, I'm going to start January 1st. I'm like, dude, it's September. What do you mean you're going to wait? You're not going to wait. Come on, start. And they're like, no, it's better to start in January. I'm like, okay. And then they get 3 weeks in and then they quit. And they're like, well, I just don't have the willpower, and that's why only 8% of people do their New Year's resolutions properly. We're wired to fail for this stuff because we're waiting for something to show up and save us and keep us in there. But motivation, actually, it comes in two forms. One form is accountability, and that's extrinsic, that's outside you. And then the other side is intrinsic, and that's inside you. And that's self-management or self-efficacy. And so if you think about it this way, there's the two different bits. The easiest one is accountability. Okay, and there's two layers. One is the leader layer, and that's when you hire someone like me to be your coach. And so I sit down and say, okay, I'm here to hold you accountable. You tell me you're going to work out 3 days per week. I'm going to look for you to work out 3 days per week. I'll write that workout, I'll put it on my app, and I'll help you stay accountable to do what you tell me you're going to do. And so now they have that accountability, and it's easy because all you got to do is hire the coach. Tell them what your goals are, and then they help you get there. And that's the accountability. The other level of accountability is social level. And at the social level, that's where you start joining groups. Now, everybody thinks, most people think, peer pressure is a bad thing. That's only if you're surrounding yourself with bad peers. If you join a run club, that's a pretty good group of peers. And if they're going to hold you accountable to do your running or walking or whatever, good deal. If it's a spin class, if it's water aerobics, whatever, if you're surrounding yourself with good people that are holding you accountable, because I know when I did do CrossFit, everybody there was at 5 o'clock. We all were there at 5 o'clock. It was the same 5 o'clock group every single day. And so you knew they were going to be there, so you went there. Because if I don't show up, probably someone were going to message me and ask me if I'm okay. I'm going to feel bad. Say, well, I just went back to sleep. No problem. So accountability at a leader level and at a social level, pretty easy. Just hire a coach, join a group. And that accountability will get you started. But that accountability is not permanent. It's only there as long as the people that are holding you accountable are there. And so like if you say, well, I'm going to start walking with my sister, and then your sister turns her ankle, I don't know how many people I've had tell me, it's like, well, I couldn't go because my sister wasn't there. She turned her ankle. I'm like, what does your sister's ankle have to do with you walking? Well, she wasn't there. Again, the accountability wasn't there. So accountability is good to a point. But when we get over to the self-efficacy piece, this is when it gets really, really interesting, because at the leader level is you, the CEO of your body, CEO of your health. And what business leaders do in businesses is they do processes and systems to keep things flowing and working. They try to remove friction from doing it right and add friction to doing it poorly. So if I don't want to eat snacks at night, then don't have the snacks in the house. That's a simple strategy process that I can put in place. Okay. No cookies in the house. Then I can't snack on cookies at 10 o'clock at night. Okay. So at self-management, we're just putting these processes, strategies, and tactics. So I'll tell you this story. When I was trying to work out, I wanted to work out at 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I told my boss that was my lunch hour. This is when I'm going to be training. I'm going to go over to the gym for an hour, do my lift, and I'll come back. And Monday through Friday. That was every week. Now, sometimes I would get my gym bag out. I lived about an hour away, so I couldn't just run home. I'd get my gym bag out and I'd be missing something, like a pair of socks or a t-shirt or the shorts. One day it was one shoe. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out, how do you not pack two shoes? How is one not packed and one is packed? That blew my brain. I'm sitting there in the bathroom like, why do I only have one shoe? How did this happen? And I realized I must be doing something to self-sabotage. I don't know why, but some reason I was self-sabotaging and I needed to fix that. So I printed out a list and I laminated it and I put that in my gym bag. And every day after at night, I pull the gym bag, I pull it out, I lay it on the bed and I go through from top to bottom down the list, put it in the bag, put the bag right by the door so I'd have to trip over it leaving in the morning. And I never had a not packed bag after that. So again, reducing the friction, reducing the excuses. And so that's at the self-management. And that's very powerful because now we get consistent. When we get consistent, now this is when we go down to the social level, which I call habits and values. We begin to develop the habits and values and we start doing these things. And if you're working out every day, 5 days a week, and you just do that, that's your thing, it becomes you. So the easiest way to explain this is you think about the woman or a guy who goes out and goes for a walk. He says, I'm going to start walking after work. And he starts out with just 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and then he ups it a little bit. Then he starts maybe adding a little jog to it. And then finally he's like, I think I'll sign up for a 5K. They go and do a 5K, and now they're buying the shoes. Now they're on this websites with talking about running. They've become a runner. They identify as a runner. And guess what runners do? They run. They get up, they get off work. They get off work and they go put their stuff on and they go for a run. Or they get up in the morning, they put their stuff on and they go for a run. No one has to make them do it. They just do it because that's their identity. And so when you can get self-efficacy going, sorry about that, but you can get that going, then you basically have permanent, unlimited motivation. That's now, the best people have all of it because if they want to get better at running, they hire a coach. They are in running groups and they are doing things to make themselves better and better at being able to run effectively. And that's who they are. And so when you have feet in all four of those quadrants, you have unlimited motivation. You never run out.
So Allan, do you direct people specifically? The new research that's come out recently in regards to the more lean muscle people are able to maintain or even continue to add as they age, increases longevity, quality of life, reduces injury. If they get sick, they get healthier faster. They're more able to adapt. Do you push people to kind of have both a cardio and a resistance training schedule as well too, or whatever it is just to get them started?
Well, I don't push people. I pull people. Okay, so I'll tell you this story. My grandfather loved golf, loved it, loved more than people. He was a salesman, and back in that day, you played golf to sell stuff, right? So he was playing golf almost every day of his life until he was 80. And I went to visit him, and he wasn't playing. I'm like, what's going on? He said, I can't play anymore. I don't have the strength, and I don't have the balance to swing the club anymore. Now, a lot of people say, well, he's 80, right? He lived until he was 95. So the last 15 years of his life, he didn't do the one thing he loved the most. But you flash forward 10 years, and he's 90, and he can't make it from it. When he realizes he has to go, he can't make it from the chair to the bathroom. And so he has to call down to the desk because he's in this care center. He has his own apartment, but they're there to help him if he needs it. He calls down there, they have to come clean him up because he can't do that. So I say, I want to be able to wipe my own butt when I'm 105. Okay. I want to be independent. I don't want people to have to take care of me. I want to be able to do all the things I love my whole life. And the way you do that is you build fitness for the task at hand. Okay. Sometimes the task at hand is opening a pickle jar. I want a pickle. I got to open the jar. I need the grip strength to open that pickle jar. Now, it happens that grip strength is also correlated with longevity because people with grip strength typically just have general strength. And so if you want to do things, you have to think of training or exercise. So people say, I hate workouts. I hate training. I hate sweating. I'm like, well, if that's what's necessary for you to be able to wipe your own butt when you're 105, do you want to be able to do that? So if you want that, we've got to do this. So everybody needs to be doing resistance training if they want to remain independent throughout their lives. Everybody needs to be doing stamina training if they want to keep up with what's going on. I want to be able to play with my grandchildren. I know that, when I was a kid, I did kind of crazy things, but nothing like the Tough Mudder. But I did a Tough Mudder with my daughter. And I was doing CrossFit and all those kind of things with her. I don't know what my grandkids are going to be doing. She just got married 2 years ago. Our daughters got married 2 years ago. So I'm assuming there's going to be a granddaughter within the next couple of years, grandson, granddaughter. If that's the case, what are they going to be doing 18 years from now? I don't know, but I'm going to want to do it with them. So I might be that crazy 80-year-old dude out there doing this crazy thing with these teenagers and kids because I want to. I want to be a participant in their lives too. And so I don't know what that is. So I'm actually training for it at this point, but I'm going to be close enough where a little bit of training from there gets me there, where I need to be. So if you start thinking about fitness as fit for task, what do I have to be able to do now? And what do I want to be able to do later? And if you're building your body for that, you need muscle mass. You need to retain as much of it as you possibly can. And the same thing with your stamina. You need to be working that. And same with balance, same with mobility. All these things are training that you should be doing as we get older to live the life we want to live. Trips and falls are one of the main killers of people over 65. If you break your hip, the likelihood you're going to die within 2 years is astronomical. So don't.
Right.
Don't.
Right.
Lift some weights, get your bone density up, get some muscle mass around that, get some meat. And then when you fall, you're less likely to hurt yourself, but you're also less likely to fall.
Yeah, it's interesting in our fitness studio when people start, because we do functional training, and people who've never worked out, which is, we're just so excited that they've chosen to start a journey. And I just want to do cardio. I don't want to do any resistance training. And, we talk to them about the balanced approach to optimal fitness, and they never even contemplated this concept of lean muscle. And women in particular, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want my jeans to fit too tight or whatever the case may be. But it's remarkable as they start to see their bodies change, as they begin to put lean muscle on, not massive, but all of a sudden now, they're starting to notice, wow, I'm able to do things that I couldn't conceive doing previously. The question I have next for you is this. We know that the typical American diet is so highly processed. We consume over 80% of the pharmaceuticals in the entire world, but we're only 4% of the population. We are a sick society. We can go on and on about all the underlying causes, but it's the highly processed food, it's the seed oils, it's the sugar consumption, so on and so forth. Jack LaLanne said, who I know you will know who Jack LaLanne was. Many don't know if you're probably over 40 or under 40, but he was probably the first fitness guru. He had a TV show back in the 60s on a black and white television. I remember my grandmother watching it. But he always said, when it comes to health and fitness, he said, diet is king and exercise is queen. I believe that both are just as important. But the point being is that you are what you eat. So how much weight do you give to your clients, no pun intended, on that component when you're training them and putting programs together for them?
Well, I'm kind of agnostic when it comes to how you eat or what you eat. I mean, because people are going to want to go one direction or another, and that's fine. If you want to exclude certain food groups, then that's fine. But processed food is not food. It's just not, okay? It provides calories. It may provide some nutrition, but it's not. So talking to hundreds of professional experts in this field of nutrition, I ask them why their way of eating. So if I'm talking to a vegan, why is your way of eating better? Well, it's a whole food, plant-based diet. We don't eat the junk. I'm like, okay. And I ask a carnivore the same question. Why is your way of eating? We eat an animal-based whole food diet. We don't eat the junk. Okay. The common thread here is don't eat the junk. Don't eat the processed stuff. If it comes in a bag, box, jar, or can, it's probably processed at some level. If it can sit on the shelf for months or years, it's not food anymore. Even if they made it out of something that was at one time food, it's not anymore. And so if you will sit down and just say, I want to recognize this as an animal or from an animal, or I want to recognize this as a plant or from a plant, then that's food. That's what our bodies recognize as food and respond to. Things we eat, the movement we do, the way we sleep, the stress management we have, and the inner talk we have are all information that go into our inner system to decide what we're going to do. It's driven by hormones, but inside our body is this communication, and all it knows is what we feed it. Okay, so if we're eating bad food, our body's like, well, where's the nutrition? I want more. Now, it doesn't need more of the brownies. It needs more nutrition. It tasted something sweet and it was expecting vitamins. There were none. And so now it's like, I want more. And now you're eating more brownies. If you're giving your body the movement it needs, it's going to feel safe. If your body doesn't feel safe, it's not going to respond well for weight loss. Your cortisol levels are going to be higher. It's like, I don't understand why Jay won't go out of the cave today. He usually goes and walks around a good bit and hunts. So we must be in trouble. I'm going to kick in the cortisol, and that's going to stop me from trying to build muscle. It's going to stop me from doing anything I need because I'm not safe. And if we got extra calories, store them in the belly. Just store them, fat, because I don't feel safe. So if we're eating good food, we're moving the way we're supposed to, we're sleeping well, and we're managing our stress, and we stop talking to ourselves like we're evil. My inner voice, completely evil. He's a completely evil dude. I really have a hard time with him. But I finally figured out I just have to tell him to go away. Yeah. I've got this. I've got this. Yeah. But we have this bad inner dialogue when we screw up at something. And I'm like, okay, you get those 5 things all working in the right direction for you, your body heals itself. It's one of the most amazing things. The human body is a gift. You have a body, a machine effectively that can heal itself and improve if you do the right things for it. Think about that. Your body can heal itself. It can get better. You put a little bit of resistance training on it, you give it the protein it needs, and you give it a little bit of time to rest, and the muscles get better. It's one of the most amazing things, and every day I'm just astonished at, I get this. This was a gift, and I love it. I just do.
It's really a great way to wrap up. We call it innate intelligence, right? The body that made the body heal the body. You take a sperm and an egg, and in 280 days, you got this beautiful child. You cut your finger, you don't have to think about it. 99.9% of everything that goes on inside your body through your autonomic nervous system is taking care of it. You just got to put the right inputs in. And it's as simple as that. And I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. You're changing lives. You're inspiring people, giving them the necessary information to make better choices. And so how can people find you? Tell them about your podcast, where they can find your podcast, or if they're interested in getting your book.
Okay. So the book is on Amazon. It's called The Wellness Roadmap. I wrote it in 2018, but it's evergreen. You can go through the book today. There's nothing that's in there that other than just my journey. I've learned a lot since, but it's still a very good roadmap to get you where you want. So it's called The Wellness Roadmap. It's on Amazon and pretty much anywhere you want to buy books. I do the podcast. So each week I do another interview or some solo shows. It's called 40 Plus Fitness. I launched in 2015. So yeah, it is the oldest and largest podcast for people over 40 trying to improve their health and fitness. And then I think, I'm somewhere in the 260s. 660s at this point of episodes. So there's a lot out there for you. And then if you want to learn more about me, you can go to 40plusfitness.com. That's 40plusfitness.com. And that's where you can find pretty much everything you're going to want to know about me, get in touch with me, all of that.
Allan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today and share your wisdom and knowledge with my audience. I wish you nothing but great success.
You too. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah. Triple P Nation at Allan Misner. Make sure you check his podcast and all the great stuff he's doing. And as I always say, you be you. Just be the best you. And I promise you will always empower your dreams, ignite your passion, and accelerate your prosperity. Until next week.